What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. We're continuing with schedule preview and predictions for the 2021 college football season. Today, we're talking about the Missouri Tigers, yet another team out of the SEC. They were a pleasant surprise last year in some regards, and a lot of people are wondering, can they do it again this year? You're going to hear my thoughts here in a little bit. Hey, the channel is only continuing to grow. Let's continue to hit the subscribe button if you are a Missouri fan. Please stick around on the channel. If you're a fan of any college football at all, you want to be sure you subscribe as well. Like the video, gets the video out to as many people as possible. Share the video as well because that helps out as well. You can also leave a comment down below telling me your thoughts on the Tigers this year. Just, of course, be mindful of what you say. Keep it PG. Keep it nice in the comment section below. Without further ado, talking about Missouri in 2021. So I talked about this team a little bit as I previewed other SEC teams. And, of course, when I did my SEC power rankings, I believe I had them at number 9. And that's because, well, last year was a bit of a surprise. Yes, I think Missouri did a lot better than people expected them to, although they had a 500 record. So it wasn't anything super surprising, or I guess super amazingly surprising. And this year, a lot of people are thinking with the way Florida is going to drop off, or should drop off, at least I have Florida at 9-3. I think they're going to be relatively okay. The defense has to improve. But for Missouri, a lot of people are saying, hey, this could be the second best team in the East. I don't necessarily believe that hype, but you're going to see what I find out about them. Hey, here are some players that they lost from last year. And, of course, the big one is running back Larry Roundtree, a fantastic running back. And he is gone. You lose a couple wide receivers as well, especially Damon Hazelton. That's a huge loss for Missouri. Jalen Knox gone as well. Larry Borum off the offensive line. Trey Williams, Markel Utsi, Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton is a huge loss for Missouri. That's a big loss. And then lots of defensive backs. Jarvis Ware, Tyree Gillespie, and Joshua Bledsoe. So lots of players leaving this Missouri program, especially when you look on the defensive side. For a defense that was okay last year, played good at times, but other times not so much. Now, when you look at a guy like Nick Bolton, was their leading tackler last year, a phenomenal playmaker, gone. And I think people are going to overlook some of these, wide receiver losses. Like we know Damon Hazelton is a pretty substantial loss, but Jalen Knox, it's a pretty big loss too, especially with the Damon Hazelton loss as well. And again, those players, especially in the defensive front seven, Williams, Utsi, and Bolton. Yeah, those are big losses as well. I believe Utsi went to the transfer portal. Utsi, however you want to say it, I believe went to Arkansas. So that's a good pickup for them. Now, it is not about what you lost. It's about what you have. I want to talk about the quarterback on this list, Connor Baslack. I'm not sure how you say his last name. Missouri fans, if you could let me know, that would be awesome so I don't mispronounce it during the season. Baslack, however you pronounce it. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce names. Was a pleasant surprise last year. I know they dug into the transfer portal a little bit for quarterbacks, not this year, but last year. And then Baslack ended up starting and was a real good surprise. It's going to continue to see if he can improve. I think that'll be a big factor in Missouri's game. Tyler Beatty will be that running back. Of course, played behind Larry Roundtree and was still a solid running back. Again, only had like around 250 yards last year because Roundtree started. But for Tyler Beatty, again, starting role should prove to be a solid running back for Missouri. Not quite as good as Roundtree, obviously. Kike Chisholm coming back, that's a huge win. And then they're getting a transfer. So Ohio State recruited a guy named Mookie Cooper. Did not play, I believe, at all last year. Maybe got a couple snaps, but I don't believe played at enough or even at all last year. But he was a highly recruited player coming out of high school. So he is transferring over from Ohio State to Missouri, I believe, where he went to high school in the Missouri area. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a huge pickup for Missouri, especially with the loss to Damon Hazelton. He should fare well in the wide receiver core. Nico Hay coming back at tight end. And then on the defensive side, still got some nice players coming back. Isaiah McGuire, Devin Nicholson, a defensive line player, and then a linebacker. Martez Manuel coming back as well. And then they picked up a couple guys from Tulsa. So Caleb Evans and Ali Green. Neither of them had the best stat line last year or the most impressive stat line, but they were solid players on the Tulsa defense. but so both of those, and they both had similar stats. So I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to put on here. So I ended up putting both. And of course, there are other players on Missouri's defense you could have put on this list as well. But I thought I would show those two guys coming over. They should play some prominent roles in this defense. Here's a look at the schedule for the Missouri Tigers. Again, 500 record last year. They were 5-5. They were third in the SEC West, or in the SEC East, excuse me. So you can kind of see how people might think, well, this is going to be the second best team in the SEC East. But the Music City Bowl ended up being canceled, of course, against Iowa because of COVID concerns. Hey, you guys know how this works. Talking about some games more than others. There are more interesting matchups to me. So if the date gets highlighted in green, it's a win. And if it gets highlighted in red, it is a loss. Without further ado, we're going to talk about Missouri in 2021. Starting off with the game against Central Michigan. Central Michigan also has to play LSU. So, I mean, this is going to be a good telltale game for Missouri out of the gate. It's going to be, can the quarterback continue to improve? Will the losses on defense not really mean? Like, this is going to be a good telltale game. I think Missouri gets the win, whether they play a good or bad game. But I think the final score of this game could tell us a lot about Missouri. And then a road game against Kentucky. Now, Kentucky picked up an offensive line transfer. I believe I originally called him a defensive line transfer. I just read that it was a D. Or I might have even called him a linebacker transfer. Offensive line transfer from LSU. You know, Kentucky's going to start throwing the football this year, but they haven't done it in a while. And I feel like it's going to get a little hard for Kentucky to get used to that sort of, you know, throwing the football again. They're going to have to establish a new identity on offense. Mark Stoops has a lot of new coaching staff there at Kentucky. Now, Kentucky got Will Levis from the transfer portal. Chris Rodriguez is my number 10 running back in the nation. I love Chris Rodriguez. Wan'Dale Robinson over from Nebraska at wide receiver. He's a good dual threat wide receiver. So he can run the jet sweep, and he can go out for a pass as well. Mainly was used at the run at Nebraska last year. Just what the stats will tell you. But again, for Kentucky, the defense should be pretty solid as well, because for Kentucky, they got a lot of underrated players on defense. I just feel like it's going to be hard right out of the gate for Kentucky to get the ball rolling, if that makes sense. So I do have Missouri winning this game, but I do have Kentucky as a surprise team this year. I think Kentucky is going to have a lot better of a record than most people think. So while Kentucky's going to do great things in the future, I do think it's going to be a little hard for them to get off the ground. Hence why I'm picking Missouri. Call it a little bit of an upset, if you will. Then they play Southeastern Missouri. I don't see this one being close. Of course, that is a lower league team. I believe Division I, but FCS. Missouri should have no troubles with them. So they're through the fourth of their schedule unscathed. Now they get their interesting non-conference matchup. It's a game against Boston College. So an ACC team. We're going to look at Boston College here, I believe, later this week. I believe on Thursday. If not, it's sometime this week for sure. Boston College is a very interesting team because when you look at what they have some good playmakers. When you're looking at a guy like Phil Jurkovec at quarterback, man, Notre Dame wishes they had him now, right? After losing Ian Book, they're going to go to Jack Cohn or a freshman coming in. But I mean, Phil Jurkovec could very well prove himself to be one of the best quarterbacks in the entire nation this year at the end of the season. Boston College has a lot of nice pieces all around, and I think it's a team that's only improving. This is also going to be a telltale game for Missouri, and it's really going to test this defense, especially the new pieces that they have in the secondary. The secondary, I think, is not necessarily an issue for Missouri, but I think it's a point on the field to watch. And I think Phil Jurkovec is really going to test that, and I think Boston College gets this win here. Boston College going to be a very good passing team, and I think if Boston College can get the run established like they have with some good running backs in years past, they're going to be a very good team offensively, and I'm just not that hyped on Missouri's offensive potential yet. I want to see how Missouri's offense plays on the field because at times it was solid last year, but there were also times where it was pretty bad. Missouri had kind of a roller coaster of a season. Still a surprise, though, nonetheless. But I do have Boston College winning this game. And then a home game against Tennessee. Tennessee is also a team that I'm not very high on. You can tell I have some interesting feelings about teams in the SEC. Tennessee, for me, look, there's so much going on. They're losing so many pieces to the transfer portal. I mean, you can name off any number of guys you want. Henry To'oTo'o, the linebacker, Guarantano, the quarterback, both of their running backs and Ty Chandler and Eric Gray. I mean, you can list so many more players that are leaving this program among recruiting violations. And now there's a new coach in Josh Heupel. I like Josh Heupel. I really do. I just don't know if it's all going to come together this first year at Tennessee. It could very well, but I do have Missouri winning this game. I just think Tennessee is going to struggle this year. Now a home game against North Texas. So the final non-conference game of the season against North Texas for Missouri. North Texas, I've said, is a team that I think can be a pleasant surprise. And by that, I think they can compete, maybe not with teams like Missouri. So I am going to flash green up on screen, but I do think that North Texas is going to be a solid team next year. I don't think I'm going to do a preview prediction for them unless there are any North Texas fans out there that want me to do one, might think about it. But for North Texas, I think they're going to be a solid team this year. I don't think they're going to be able to test Missouri that heavily, though. I do have Missouri winning the game. And then another home game against Texas A&M. This half of the season is where problems start to occur for Missouri. I mean, when you just look at the schedule that they have to play, you can already tell it's going to be a hard road for Missouri. And I do think they pick up a second loss here before their bye week. Texas A&M, a lot of people are saying they're going to be right back to where they were last year. I don't see them being right back in the playoff conversation necessarily, at least as into the playoff conversation as they were last year, where they were fifth. I believe Texas A&M, and again, I'm not even believing on them as being a top 10 team yet. And a lot of people are saying, Haynes King, he's going to be better than Kellen Mond. Well, if you're better, you would have started, right? He was there last year. And we don't even know if he's going to start. It could be Zach Calzada, but there are still a lot of nice pieces for Texas A&M. And with the Aggies playing at home, I don't see this one being particularly close. So I do have Missouri losing that game before their bye week, and they should pick up a nice bounce-back win against Vanderbilt. There is actually a story that just broke recently that Vanderbilt, no player has a jersey number right now, which is interesting. I don't know quite the reason for that. I didn't read too much into it. Just came up on one of my feeds, and I thought that's pretty bizarre. So yeah, I mean, if you pay attention to SEC football, you might not even know that. But Vanderbilt, yeah, right now, practice, no one has a jersey number. So we'll have to see how that shakes out, right? No, Missouri should get an easy win here, even though it's on the road. And then Missouri should pick up an easy loss. Well, not necessarily, no loss is an easy loss, but yeah, Georgia's going to be one of the best teams in the nation this year. I'm not a huge fan of JT Daniels. I just never been sold on his talent. But when you look at the rest of the Georgia squad, I'm not denying that JT Daniels is a great quarterback. He's a pretty solid quarterback. Again, missed my quarterback list. Probably should have been an honorable mention in that. But Georgia's got the best group of wide receivers they've had, even without George Pickens gone, picking up Arik Gilbert, transfer from LSU, Darion Kendrick, a transfer from Clemson. Georgia's picking up a lot of nice pieces, and I think Georgia's going to be really, really good this year. I don't see Missouri pulling off this one, especially with it being on the road. Home game against South Carolina. South Carolina is an interesting team because I don't necessarily like them, but there are a lot of nice pieces at South Carolina. But they're losing their quarterback, Ryan Hilinski. He transferred over to Northwestern. So it's going to be interesting at that position. We know how good Kevin Harris is. We know that South Carolina's front seven at least has, in my opinion, a high ceiling. They can play really well. All in all, I do think Missouri is going to end up winning this game, though. Just too much talent, comparatively speaking, to South Carolina. For Missouri, I think they win this one. So Missouri, as of the Vanderbilt game, you're already making the bowl game. What's left? Just tack on one more win. So now they are 7-3 before heading into their final two games. A home game against Florida, and I have you losing this one. Yes, I know Florida's going to drop off this year. I still have them at 9-3 because I believe with the playmakers they have on defense, it's going to get slightly bit better. At least I expect. I know the defensive coordinator there doesn't have a good track record at Florida, and that very well could continue into this year. And they're going to have to find a new quarterback. It should be Emory Jones, and replacing Kyle Pitts isn't going to be easy with Kamar Gamble. Neither is replacing Kadarius Toney. Florida's still got some nice pieces there, though, and I still feel like they're going to be a solid team. I could see this one being close if Missouri is better than I think. Right now, I'm not too sure about Missouri. So if Missouri is a little bit better than I think, I definitely could see them winning the game. But I do have the Gators winning this one right now. Should be a fun one, depending on how Missouri plays. And then a road game it's a Friday game against Arkansas. I don't think I've seen a Friday SEC game in a long time. So this is a little odd to me, but maybe maybe you more people that are hyped up on the SEC can explain that to me. No, but for this game, I have Arkansas coming into this game 5-7, and when you or 5-6, sorry, and then when you look, I have Missouri coming in here at 7-4, and especially with Arkansas playing at home, I think Arkansas is going to have a lot more to play for. They're playing for a bowl game. They're playing for a bowl bid. Arkansas is going to be a sneaky good team this year. It's all about if Jefferson can take that next step, right? If Jefferson can take that next step at quarterback for Arkansas, hey, the Razorbacks should be a pretty solid team. Defense got to improve a little bit as well, but I think just Arkansas, with all they have to play for in this one, I don't think Missouri gets the win here. I think Missouri drops this game to the Arkansas Razorbacks. And with that, I have the Missouri Tigers going 7-5 in 2021. Kentucky is that swing game for me. Florida might also be a swing game, but I think Florida's just going to be better than Missouri this year. So for Kentucky, yes, that is that swing game. I think Kentucky is the third best team in the SEC East. Yeah, behind Georgia and Florida. Kentucky might even be the second best team in the SEC East if they can beat Florida. So for Missouri, the ceiling for me is 9-3 because I could see them beating Arkansas. I could see them beating Florida, and just just with the schedule and the talent that Missouri has. Not saying it's bad talent. I just don't think they're going to be able to get double-digit wins this year. And that floor for me is 4-8. Again, there are a lot of interesting games on the schedule, and teams in the SEC can prove me wrong this year. So that's going to do it for my 2020 preview prediction for the Missouri Tigers. If you guys enjoyed or you are a Missouri fan, leave a like, subscribe. Tiger fans, you're going back to a bowl game tomorrow. We're going to look at the TCU Horned Frogs, another potential dark horse in the Big 12. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. Again tomorrow. TCU Horned Frogs. Goodbye.